Chapter 2 is all about teamwork responsibility. So, what as individuals responsibilities do we have towards the teams that we are on? Here we see the definition of leadership. As you guys can see, the definition is verbal and nonverbal communication that facilitates a team's transactional and task processes in achieving members and the team's needs and goals. So let's review for just a second. Transactional processes, as we discussed in Chapter 1, have to do with the relationships involved in a team, and task processes have to do with paying attention to the job at hand. This definition of leadership recognizes that communication is how leadership is exercised, that transactional and task processes are how needs and goals are met, and that both individual members' interest and the team's interest are important. You can also see that I've included on this slide the statement providing leadership versus being a leader. I want you guys to take a few seconds and think about what the differences between these two items may be. To me, providing leadership is a set of behaviors. Being a leader, on the other hand, is a position. Leadership must be developed and exercised, but the title of leader can be elected or conferred. Anyone can be told that they are a leader by the position alone. Providing leadership implies responsibility and facilitation, while being a leader may depend on some degree of status or power. Next, we are going to talk about the qualities of a leader. These qualities include preparation for a task, having credibility, being able to adapt, having ethical principles, and also personal involvement. Where I want to focus our attention is the adaptability section. Not one leadership style works for every person or every team. So there are different ways where you can tell if your leadership style is working to the benefit of both individuals and the teams. When you are good at self-monitoring, what you are doing is you are watching others' responses as well as your own behavior, and you're able to identify and act upon environmental cues. This is where you become concerned with the appropriateness of the social behavior, you're attentive to the social comparison for informational purposes, you're adept at acting and able to control behavior when needed. Co-orientational accuracy. This is the ability to gauge another person's position or feelings. Research shows that women are better at this than men. And what I really want to tell you is if you remember this phrase about co-orientational accuracy, it will help you remember exactly what it is. The phrase is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you may be an expert at something, but unless they know you care about them as a person and what their desires and interests are, then they're really not going to be that impressed with the knowledge that you can impart to them. The last item I want you to know under adaptability is person-centered messages. These are very important because this focus is on the other person rather than on yourself. It shows recognition that they are unique and a sensitivity to their own qualities, goals, feelings, and concerns. So for example, if a teammate gives a suggestion which you call stupid and say it's too expensive, that will shut not only them down, but everybody else in the meeting. If instead you say, well, that's an interesting idea, but it exceeds the budget, you raise the same objection, but you'll also recognize your team member's worth. If you remember, back in Chapter 1, when we were giving the definition of a team, we talked about how leadership is a shared responsibility. So what this means is that every team member has the responsibility to share leadership. Means that they need to affect the thinking of others and influence the process and outcomes. If we have an expert in one area, if you are on a team and you're the only marketing person on the team and we are talking about the marketing aspect, everyone should contribute to that part of the discussion, but the person that has the marketing knowledge might want to speak up and start leading that aspect of the meeting. You'll also see here that we have path goal leadership theory. This theory notes that many individuals must provide leadership to counteract problems that block a group as it works along the path towards achieving a goal. When shared leadership is absent, groups often make bad decisions and take harmful actions. This slide also discusses task and transactional processes. And here, as a review, task processes are when members focus on the information and ideas that will help to achieve the goal, and transactional processes are when you're working on the relationships. In this slide, we look at some of the obstacles to leadership in teams. So what are the items that might stop others from participating in that shared leadership we just discussed? Some of the items listed here include the shy box, and this is when somebody is so shy that they aren't comfortable speaking up in front of a group. So they may be better at one-on-one interaction. But what you need to do as a leader with all of these is recognize when these things are happening and encourage the people to participate. The point of view box includes someone whose political, religious, or professional point of views are in the minority. Others may simply ignore them or put down this individual until he or she remains silent. Again, if you see this happening, you need to stop the behavior of the individuals that are putting the person down and encourage the individual who is not speaking up to participate. The different box, this is reserved for those whose gender, race, culture, or ethnic traditions are different from the majority. For example, when men are in the group, some women of high leadership ability may fail to assert their leadership roles. The too much effort box. This is when if it takes a little extra effort to communicate with someone who, for example, is disabled or speaks with an accent, members often just don't bother. Again, you need to address this if you see it happening. And the final one is the disapproval box. A group may cut off leadership from someone because he or she lives a different lifestyle. Even if the group is open and receptive, some members whose lifestyle is a little too off from the norm in their own opinion may withdraw because their previous experiences have made them afraid of being stereotyped or labeled. One of the qualities of being a leader is behaving ethically. And when we talk about ethics, what we are talking about is the value judgments concerning degrees of right or wrong, goodness or badness. So it's that gray area that you hear people talk about. When you have an ethical dilemma, this is when standards are applied and decisions are made between two real choices. So for example, when I teach my traditional undergrad students, I ask them if they would kill someone, and their answer is always no. Just it's their immediate answer. But when I ask them if they came home from school and somebody was harming somebody that they loved, would they be more likely to hurt somebody? And their answer is always yes. That would be an example of an ethical dilemma. So in this slide, we talk about how ethics are personal standards. These are the criteria that relate to your own value system. They may be clear rules that you follow or ethical guidelines for how you behave and make decisions. For the purposes of this class, I would like you to know the following three views on ethics: the legalistic view, the situational view, and the philosophical view. In the legalistic view, this uses some code or set of rules as the basis for making decisions. In this view, if it isn't illegal, then it isn't unethical. And if it isn't legal, then it is unethical. Take a minute and think about what that might mean. With the legalistic view, these also may be based on statutory law, a religion, or a code of ethics. Laws and rules are essential to a society, but they are not sufficient for ethical choices. In the situational view, this is where every ethical question is weighed in terms of the context and the situation. These are not considered in a vacuum. They are considered in terms of real situations and issues. The more complicated the circumstances, the more difficult the decision. So what this is saying is what might be okay in one situation, you may view as unethical in another situation. Finally, the philosophical view. This may be personal or cultural, and it may be drawn from religious, cultural, political, professional, and life experiences. It rests on assumptions about human beings, their position in the universe, governments, and God. Often, these sources are intertwined in the ethical structure of a society as well. The result of this view is a society in which people can take very differently opposed positions that are ethically right to them. In addition, there is also a social imperative to discuss, evaluate, and decide the best alternatives for the society as a whole. That concludes Chapter 2 and our lectures for Week 1. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave me a message on Canvas, shoot me an email, reach out to me, and we can set up a time to talk. But I hope you guys have a really great week, and let me know if you have any questions.